Domo domo, what is up everybody? Welcome back to this week's Jujutsu Kaisen anime versus manga comparison. We are here for episode 8 this week. I am your host, official Jujutsu Kaisen manga translator Steady. I welcome you here today. Last week was obviously a very hype episode with some incredible animation and incredible action sequences. This week we get a little bit of action as well, but like I mentioned as I kind of had my outro last week, this week is definitely a lot of kind of more intrigue, right? Kind of new characters introduced, fact that this Kyoto school exists, this idea of kind of the Goodwill event, what that's all about. And of course, a quick disclaimer to all of you guys who are anime only watchers, although I do keep talk about kind of manga and spoilers and stuff to a very kind of low minimum. That's not redundant at all. I will say that I do mention things here and there sometimes, but fear not, I'll try to kind of keep that stuff to a minimum. So this week we will be kind of talking about the new characters that are introduced and some of their voice actors. Maybe, you know, those of you with the good ears out there can recognize some of the voices. We'll be going through that a little bit. We'll be talking a little bit about the intrigue and how the story is kind of opening up as well, and obviously the differences, and because there were a few differences that the anime kind of took creative liberty on, as well as, of course, like we've seen throughout the series so far, a lot of just staying true to the manga source materials. But here we go. Manga versus anime, Jujutsu Kaisen episode 8 comparison. Let's do this. All right. Alright, so we are here. We start off immediately where we left off with the last episode, which was in the middle of chapter 16. So this episode 8 is going to be taking us through the rest of chapter 16, chapter 17, and chapter 18 as well. So 2.5 chapters, and episode 9 will most likely be starting us off at the beginning of chapter 19. So it kind of cut us off with that little reveal at the end of Nanami and Yuji. But we start off here in the episode with Kugisaki and Fushiguro at the vending machines. And, you know, Kugisaki's kind of complaining about, man, I wish we had more vending machines and this and that. But I don't know, a closer look, they got a pretty good selection here, if I'm honest, but it's the intrigue a little bit here, because although Fushiguro just kind of plays it off, he does mention about the fact that, you know, Jujutsu High has to be very selective and very careful about who they invite onto their premises. So that does kind of give us an idea about what Jujutsu High is about as well, right? And their relationship and their kind of public image as well. Because remember, Jujutsu High is kind of played off to the public as like a religious school, without, of course, going into the details. Then we get a little flash sideways here to the Tokyo second years with Maki, Panda, and Toge, as they're kind of walking through this forest here. And I do like how they kind of pull out a little bit here from this overhead view, even though the animation of them walking is a little, you know, it's pretty basic, but the anime has been doing an amazing job of just kind of showing all these different views of Jujutsu High. Like I feel much more kind of familiar almost with Jujutsu High after watching only a few episodes of the anime as compared to the manga, because the manga does keep a lot of these kind of scenes around the campus or the premises very, very, very short. So I like the kind of the B-roll, so to speak, that they have a lot going on in the anime here. But, you know, they're talking about how the Kyoto school is going to be coming by, and normally it would just be the principal, but there are a couple of troublemakers on the Kyoto side that might be making an entrance, and exactly here we go. Todo Aoi and Mai Zenin. So Mai is Maki's sister, twin sister, who is a second year at Kyoto High, and Todo Aoi is a third year at Kyoto High. And I really like the kind of the purple shirt that he's got there. I need to get one of those too. Purple is my favorite color, so it's cool seeing one of my favorite characters wearing that color. So, but then they're introduced very much the same way, kind of the way that Mai has her face angled there, and Toto's kind of doing this kind of deal. And then the way that Mai has her little saying some dishing out some shade here. And I remember this scene very well in the manga because of the kind of the face that Fushiguro and Nobara give, this kind of like this little and they represented that here in the manga, and even the way that it's kind of stylized almost is very cool as well. But then Todo is coming in, he's like, enough with the stupid chit chat, let's get down to business. And he asks the what type of girls are you into, and the question mark. And then I love it because this is where they have this kind of music coming in the background, the da 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 da, and he's ripping off the shirt. It's very, gives this kind of grandiose nature to Todo, that he is, you know, kind of a cut above. And of course manga readers are much more familiar with Todo at this point. So I love the vibes that they're giving this scene here with Todo, as we kind of have this little intro scene, the title screen here with you know, boring as the episode title, episode 8, and we have Todo and his famous kind of like little pose here, which in the manga was very much the same way, but the manga I think was much more kind of stylized and a lot more dynamic. In this episode in particular, I will say that the manga perhaps did kind of have a one-up in a lot of these kind of famous frames. The first of which is this one right here of Todo. Not to say that this doesn't look good or anything. It looks amazing, you know, with just like his rippling muscles and this and that, but I love Nobara with her, you know, always these little interjections like he's a closet perv and all that, and Fushiguro kind of pissed, and Todo doing his quick self introduction here. Kyoto school, third year, Todo Aoi, done. But then he's kind of elaborating, like, you know, preferences in girls shows a lot about a guy and this and that, which I don't know, I remember reading this and then kind of thinking to myself like, yeah, I mean it does, but Todo makes it sound like it's everything. So of course, kind of his quirkiness. They have very much had this scene in the manga as well, kind of the sexy girls showing, and they had a different kind of interpretation in the anime here of how it's kind of scrolling down and you see all these different girls here. But then Todo kind of keeps on going on about how this Goodwill event is a opportunity for him to kind of let loose a little bit. And they added this kind of interesting little battle scene here, which they didn't have in the manga. So this was something new in the anime here. And then Fushiguro's kind of famous little speech here saying like, as long as the girl, you know, has just a really good personality or unwavering personality, I'm fine. And, you know, it's kind of like Mai and Kugisaki are like, oh, that's a good answer, you know, but... And then, of course, Kugisaki with her little, I was about to beat you half to death if you were to say had big boobs or something like that. I like how it switches over to Todo here. Now, this is really interesting. Again, this is why I love watching the anime as kind of a manga reader, because there's these little scenes that perhaps you didn't really notice the first time when you're reading the manga. And I almost forgot or almost didn't notice how much like Todo is distraught by the answer here. Tears coming down his eyes, and because for him, we find out a lot more about his character and stuff down the line. There's still a lot very much mysterious about him, but for him, This idea of boredom and stuff, and meeting people who are boring is just, it's doesn't gel with him, right? So the fact that this possible, this prodigy that is Fushiguro ends up being so boring in his eyes, it's like he has tears coming down his cheeks, and I never really noticed it that much in the manga, but when you do read the manga, then it's like it is there. He does have tears as he comes in with the elbow, or clothesline, I guess is the better word for it, as Mai kind of comes up behind Kugisaki. And this is a famous one, the famous line by Kugisaki saying, I thought you guys looked similar, but Maki's 100 times prettier than you are. I can see the pores on your face, right? Such a girl thing to say. But we kind of switch back outside to Todo walking up to Fushiguro, and again he's like still crying here. And this scene is a lot more focus on this scene, because in the manga I remember kind of flipping through a couple of these pages, and of course I translated it, but they really kind of bring attention to the fact that Todo is just like so sad by the fact that he's so boring. But then Fushiguro does recognize the name Todo Aoi now, and he mentions an event that happened last year at Christmas, which is basically volume 0. So for those of you unfamiliar with volume 0, it's kind of a prequel volume which is coming out in January in English. So I have the pre-order in the description if you're interested in that, and it does help me out if you use the link down below as well, so I do highly appreciate it. But there was kind of an event on Christmas Day in 2017, which is last year. In the anime here is supposed to be in 2018. But then talking about how Todo had taken down 5 grade 1s and a special grade curse, so that says a lot about his ability. And Fushiguro mentions here that he didn't even use this curse technique, which of course at this point in the anime we're not familiar with his curse technique is. Some manga readers know what it's all about. It's cool because then Todo has this little no, that's just a rumor. I used it against the special grade. So it's like, and of course the reader is supposed to have the same reaction as Fushiguro here, like, oh well, isn't that nice, you used it against the special grade. But he was able to defeat 5 grade 1 curses without his curse technique. So it says a lot about just his physical prowess. And then so Fushiguro uses his summon, his Shikigami here of the Toad plus Wells Unknown Abyss, so kind of like a mishmash here. And there's still a lot we don't know about Fushiguro's kind of Shikigami abilities. We have been explained a lot, but he seems to be able to kind of have these outliers in terms of mixing and matching and stuff too. But again, I won't go too deep into it and start spoiling stuff. But then we see Todo coming in and taking care of business as he goes for Fushiguro's face. And this scene, this particular part where he's kind of going for the face, they kind of took a creative angle here from down below. But in the manga, I remember it being so cool because there's Todo's kind of face has got this crazy look on it as he's moving real quick. So I mean, a difference, what they're doing here in the anime is very cool, especially the next scene here where they kind of have him going through the building and shooting Fushiguro through through all this I know it's not scaffolding, but you know what I mean, kind of the woodwork here, which it's like, who's gonna fix that? Are you gonna pay for the damages, Todo? Now that a lot of these kind of unspoken things, right? But anyways, then Fushiguro, as he's kind of flying up and Todo flying up, and then he uses the toads, and this scene very much the same way that it was in the manga, where he's got his kind of arms and legs caught by the toad tongues here. And then, but Todo's still unimpressed. And then Fushiguro, obviously, we've seen this before against Sukuna and against the curse that was at Itadori's school. He clearly has this sort of ace up the sleeve or whatever, because as soon as he kind of starts doing whatever he's about to do, Todo even recognizes as well, as he's kind of coming in with this look on his face and got the little red effect on his eye here. But then, yeah, this awesome scene here with Toge coming in. Of course, the first time that in the manga that we've saw Toge speak anything besides rice ball ingredients, and he says, don't move. And I love the effect that they have here with this kind of the distortion a little bit. We saw a lot of this kind of distortion in episode 7 with Gojo's kind of infinity and stuff. So they're really kind of doing a great job with representing these different abilities, characteristics, so to speak, with, of course, the voice itself, the audio itself was sort of distorted, but the visuals as well, very cool. And we get a look at Toge's beautiful face here. And he's got this mark on his tongue, and it's supposed to be, it's supposed to represent like a serpent. So it's supposed to be like a serpent, kind of sign. But then even we get a look here at, of course, Todo, as well, as he's being affected by Toge, and the kind of the distortion here as well, and the discoloration. Even we see kind of like these little green effects and how it's kind of wonky. So very, very cool as Panda comes in, and it comes in for the punch. And then, he's just these comedic moments, Panda saying, we made it just in time. And maybe not, actually, as he sees Fushiguro all bloody. And I do like this little moment here right after. I never really noticed this in the manga. Todo, the way that he greets Panda here is very, like, friendly. He's like, hey, Panda, long time no see, dude. Like, he clearly respects him. Panda is definitely one who does not bore Todo. So that's kind of interesting to keep in mind, right? Later on, the only other opportunity that they would have to kind of interact in the manga would be at this Goodwill event arc. But again, I won't ruin too much, but they never really had an interaction there. So it's kind of interesting to see, Todo, someone of Todo's kind of stature and his strict rules for other people. He clearly has some sort of respect towards Panda. So that's interesting. Never really thought twice about that as a longtime manga reader. Then we have Panda's little, I know speak human language kind of deal, and Toge is just kind of like got his derp face in the background here, very much the same way that it was in the manga. And then we kind of switch again over to Kugisaki and Mai, and we see Kugisaki down kind of here, and it's kind of a strange scene because in hindsight too, like in the manga they made it almost seem like she was actually hit a few times. It almost looked like kind of bloody holes here, but in the anime it's kind of weird. She's got these holes in her clothes, but there's no real marks or anything behind it, right? So, and as of the manga, like, we still don't really know too much about what the deal is with this gun. We're kind of led to believe that they're not just like spirit bullets. But anyways, I won't get too much into it. Just kind of an interesting thing to point out, but very, very similar scene here with Kugisaki on the ground with the holes in her clothes, as Maki kind of comes in to intercept, and they do have their little chat here about the intrigue that Maki is indeed, she can't use cursed energy, let alone actually see curses at all without the glasses, right? But Kugisaki comes in from behind, and they again having their little little girl talk here. And then Todo is back, and he's saying, all right, we got to get out of here because I got my tickets for Takada-chan, tall idol Takada-chan, 180 centimeters, which is about 6 feet. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty tall for girl in Japan, especially. But Todo himself is, I think he's been compared to like Gojo size, and Gojo is supposed to be like 190 centimeters, which is like 6'2", 6'3". So Todo is a pretty big dude himself. So if Todo and Takada-chan do eventually get together, then they'll have some very tall kids. And I should say here also that Todo is actually played by someone called Kimura Subaru, who is also famous for his roles as Giant in Doraemon, and one of my favorites from the ping pong animation, Sakuma. So he's got a very great voice and is absolutely perfect. And fun fact, the voice actor for Todo, Kimura Subaru, is actually good friends with Leo from Ali, the lead singer for the ending theme song, Lost in Paradise. So it's very cool. And they had this kind of little story on Twitter saying that they've been longtime friends, and one of their dreams was to, for Leo to and Ali to have a song in an anime which Subaru actually has a voice character in. So one of their dreams sort of came true. So very cool, very cool. And Mai, if you recognize perhaps, is the same voice as Yaoyorozu Momo from My Hero Academia, as well as Armin in Attack on Titan as well. So very, very cool. And I think both Todo and Mai, their voices are just spot on. I mean, you know it's good when you're listening. And like I almost forgot to talk about it even because it just felt so natural. But then we kind of, this little meeting here, this little tussle finishes up, and then we have Maki and Nobara walking away, and Nobara with this kind of I respect you, Maki-san kind of deal, I respect you, senpai kind of deal. So we kind of see this friendship blossoming between these two, because we've never really seen too much of them interacting besides when Nobara was getting tossed by Panda in the second year. So, but then we kind of move into to the actual meeting, because this whole thing started because the Kyoto school was supposed to come to have a little meeting about the Goodwill event. And then we've finally are introduced to the principal of Kyoto School, who is Gakuganji, Principal Gakuganji, who is played by someone called Mugihito. And the voice, I think, is absolutely perfect here as well. Kind of the deeper tones, but later on, like after the episode, we get that little bonus one where he's asking about the tea and stuff, and it works very, very well. But then one of the best girls of Jujutsu Kaisen here, Kasumi Miwa, got the blue hair. It's just so, like, because as a manga reader, we never really had any kind of color images of Miwa. But then we get when the anime was introduced and Miwa was introduced as a character, we see her with this blue hair, and it's kind of like, whoa. I mean, it looks awesome, even with kind of like the diagonal cut. Just this whole interaction here with Gojo and Gakuganji, as Miwa's got her million different faces here. She's behind the veil. She's all excited that she gets to meet the great Gojo Satoru, because the whole shtick with Miwa is that her name is kind of a pun on the idea of someone who follows trends. She's very much, which is Miha, which is basically like, whenever like a new trend comes out, they're always just following that kind of deal. So she's very much about kind of like the cool things and stuff like that. So the idea of getting to meet Gojo is like meeting a celebrity for her. So all these funny faces here. But we do get a very interesting little extra scenes here of Gojo kind of talking to Gakuganji, talking about how the curses are starting to, the forces of evil, so to speak, are starting to get greater and greater, and they were treated to this kind of bonus couple of frames here where we see Geto again referring to the Hyakiyako kind of deal from Volume 0, anyways, the event that happened in Christmas. And again, this little panel here of Geto with all these curses, and this whole is a scene taken directly. The previous one too of him laughing is a direct scene from Volume 0, as well as this next one from Volume 0. So it's very cool. I'm kind of holding out hope that, and I think it will happen at the rate, the popularity of. I'd be surprised if it's not already in talks. And they're kind of getting things ready for a Volume 0 like movie, a standalone movie. It just makes so much sense. It would just be perfect, kind of feature length, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, maybe even if we're lucky, movie of just covering Volume 0. I think it's got to happen. But then we get this, saying that as the curses are getting stronger, the Jujutsu sorcerers are getting stronger as well. As he kind of mentions, Yuji, Yuta, Todo, and we get this cool little scene here of Yuji and kind of the arms coming out, taken from very early stages. It was either chapter 1 or chapter 2. We get this little, no, it was chapter 1, where we had that kind of this double page spread with this kind of imagery of the arms coming around Yuji. So very, very cool that we get to see that kind of come to life. And then Gojo is on his way, and then we get Miwa, getting tea for Gakuganji as she's running, really excited to see if she can catch up with Gojo. And then this next scene, oh my god, I was dying, because this whole meet and greet of Takada-chan was just this like one panel in the manga, very quick. It was funny in the manga too, but here like they went the extra mile. It's just so interesting hearing Takada-chan like talking and stuff too. And then she's got the Takata, the way that she says it too was just so funny. It was like so exaggerated. And then Todo with his, oh my god, kind of as he's getting moved away. Oh my gosh, it was just, oh man, I was dying here. So yeah, I mean, it's just these little bonus kind of scenes. They didn't even have to do this really too, but they did, and it was well worth it. So things are getting very, very real though from here on in the manga as well as the anime, obviously, as we get this little scene of kind of this typing, which I really like that effect. They did that with the cursed womb back at the juvenile detention facility too, when we first got introduced to Ijichi. Then it says, record of 2018 September at Kanagawa Prefecture, which is next to Tokyo Prefecture. Kinema Cinema. And then I love the way that they have this little the movie theater, and you have this kind of piano music that as you get this really kind of dark scene, but you can clearly see these faces that are like, really messed up. So I like the way that they kind of had this vibe here, really creepy. The lighting, the music was just absolutely spot on, as it explains, these 3 bodies of the high school boys were found. And then we kind of move to this alleyway over here, and I like this little touch. It's very subtle, but does give off a lot of intrigue as well. I don't know if intrigue is the right word, but kind of an interesting point how the cat can sense Mahito, can even see Mahito perhaps. So very much in line with kind of cat lore about how they're oftentimes represented with this kind of idea of being kind of spirit mediums and things like that, right? So I like that little idea here, because technically Mahito, you're not supposed to be able to see Mahito here, which is why when Junpei walks up to him and he's kind of intrigued why this Junpei guy can see him, right? And it's not like Jujutsu sorcerers are the only ones that can see curses. There is this concept of windows, they call it, that can see curses, but they're not Jujutsu sorcerers. So that is a concept that I hope they do elaborate on. They talk about it here and there in the manga, but it's something that I really hope that they expand on a little bit as well. But because In the manga, the world is still very small, so to speak, which is promising because it gives us an idea that perhaps the manga will have a lot of life, for many years to come, because there's still a lot of things that they can expand on. But anyways, then we finally get our first look at Junpei Yoshino here, as we kind of have this creepy, you can tell things are kind of, something's going to be happening, right? And I like the way that they kind of have this angle from below this alleyway, and the rain falling and stuff. As we fade out to Yuji and a new face here, which is one of my favorites. I always say my favorite characters are Nanami and Kugisaki, Todo that we saw, Geto, Yuji, of course. I love Yuji as well. Always got to go with the protagonist. But yeah, we get a look at Kento Nanami here, who is voiced by Tsuda Kenjiro. A very, very big name, obviously, in for those of you who are familiar anyways with anime voice actors. So and this is exactly at the end of chapter 18, so I kind of had a hunch that this is maybe where that they would, I wasn't so sure that they were going to even show Nanami and Yuji, but they did, and they cut off right where chapter 18 did. And then, but we do get kind of little, after the ending, we get our little bonus of Kasumi Miwa taking a photo with Gojo. And now this was a little bonus page, actually, in volume 3, where it just had this little kind of panel of this photo taking the selfie, and then it shows Kasumi kind of running back to Gakuganji. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when Gakuganji says his little chawa, he kind of says it like that, kind of like, because before he was talking a lot more deeper and kind of very serious, but we see this kind of little comedic side to the voice almost, and just absolutely perfectly done. The chawa, like the tea, and Kasumi's like, oh. I mean, it's just so, I can't believe that they had that little bonus page represented here in the manga. It's just so perfect. But I guess they had to. And a little interesting point though here is the fact that Kasumi, a big difference is Kasumi's not holding a sword, which in the manga, that was something very, very distinctive about her. In addition to her kind of uniform, she has this kind of sword, so very much kind of like this prim and proper look, and with this sword kind of sticking out. It's a very cool look. So I don't know why they didn't have the sword in this episode. Maybe they just didn't want to like really give that away, or something like that. But it's not really much of a spoiler either. So if anything, I think it would have been pretty cool to see her with that sword. It kind of makes you say like, oh, what is she about? But alas, whatever. Then we get our little bonus strolling with Juju here, and man, this was just too funny. Like, and this is, of course, all these strolling with Juju things are extras that aren't in the mangas. So again, remember, you can really tell that the voice, it's very similar to kind of the voice of Yao Yorozu, but not as kind, perhaps a little bit more strict. But then Todo kind of walking up like, here, I'll give this to you. It's my duty as her future husband. And then we get this kind of little, like, with the fun music, and my in line here, now among the guys that she was looking down upon like they were trash before. I like this little touch too, where she gets scanned, and then it pulls out the gun, and it's like, but anyways, then we have Takada-chan here, like, oh my gosh, a girl, as it's kind of represented, perhaps not the guy to girl ratio for these kind of events are very, so Takada-chan making the most of it. And Oh, it's just kind of, oh man, you even got me going a little bit, you know? Like, it's the way that she kind of just creeps up to her ear and saying, like, I'll be sure to remember you. Get back outside here, and Toto's asking her, like, so what'd you think? And she's like, oh, it was fine, whatever, I guess. But just just the way that she's actually completely head over heels now. It's so funny because my making fun of Toto for all this stuff, and she's very kind of too cool for school. And then, oh man, this was just such a perfect scene and had me absolutely dying as we get her final line here, the warukune, the kind of like, oh man, I could get used to this kind of kind of deal. Oh man, too funny. Preview for the next episode, episode 9, Young Fish and Reverse Punishment. So very much heading into a very serious tone in the anime. Of course, it's still very fun, and there's comedic moments and stuff too. But yeah, things are getting very real, so to speak. And we can even get a little preview of the bloodshot at the, I don't know, is that the 7 mark or 3 mark? I don't know what's going on. Nah, I'm just playing because, of course, manga readers know what this scene is here. It looks so cool. But yeah, next week should be a very cool episode. We'll get a lot of Kento Nanami, a lot of Yuji, and kind of really head into one of kind of the big catalysts of this series. Thank you so much. I appreciate it for stopping by, sticking around, spreading that positive juju with a like and a comment. Of course, a lot of new faces these days in the channel, so it's kind of nice to see the support that I have been getting so far. But hey, oh man, sweet nectar. It's just water. But anyways, cheers to you. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku. Alright.